public spaces. I'd like to welcome my panelists, Julie, who is in charge of project development at Théâtre de la Ville in Paris, in artistic actions in public spaces, art and health, art and sport, and digital development, and projects linked with science and education and international development. Riccardo, who has worked at Teatro della Pergola in Italy for 23 years, and since 2018 he's been in charge of international relations for the theatre, and Miguel, who is the theatre maker, author, and artistic director of the Municipal Theatre of Lisbon, San Luis. My name is Natasha Tripney. I'm a writer, editor, and critic from London. I am the international editor at The Stage, and I'm the editor-in-chief of C-Stage, which is a English language platform for theatre criticism in Southeast Europe. As long as there has been theatre in public spaces, as long as there has been theatre, this is as old as theatre gets, and yet at the same time it can feel like a reinvigorating alternative to theatre in conventional indoor spaces. One of the consequences of the pandemic was that theatre makers were faced with quite a stark choice of whether to produce theatre in empty auditoriums or near empty auditoriums for digital remote audiences, or whether to engage with the public spaces, which saw, certainly in the UK and across Europe and the world, a vast array of projects being performed in parks, in car parks, and on the city streets. And a lot of these models have since been sort of incorporated into theatre makers' sort of practice and into theatre programming. We're going to start this conversation by talking about this poetic consultations project, which some of you will have engaged with this morning. This was initiated by the Théâtre de la Ville in Paris in 2005, is that correct? And then it was later adopted by Teatro della Pergola in Florence, eventually spreading to other theatres, festivals, and theatre organisations in various countries and in various languages. One of the things that happened with this project is, well, it started in 2005, the pandemic was an accelerant in terms of how this project evolved. So we're going to start by focusing on this project, its creation, its performance and its evolution as a project, and then we're going to widen the conversation to talk about the wider topics connected to theatre in public spaces, the different forms it can take, the different scales it can take, and we're going to be exploring it from an artistic, economic, logistical, and also a political angle. Julie, if I can start with you, if you can maybe begin by telling me about the beginnings of this project, and then about its journey.
Yes, thank you, and welcome everyone. Yes, the origins of the poetic consultation, actually I think it's the goal of the need of the place of artists in public spaces. It was in a small city of France, not Paris, a city called Reims. And the idea was to meet the inhabitants. And we like to speak about population and not public in this project, because the idea was how we go out of the theater, how we open the door, and artists go in the street, in the square, in the park, even in the city station, in the buses, and meet all the population with the kids, the seniors, the workers, and the form of it was invented by a director, Emmanuel de Martimota, and a writer. It's important because it's about sharing poetry. As a medical consultation, it's 20 minutes. Artists wear a white robe, but here the prescription is art, is poetry, is music, is dance. And the idea is really simple. You have just two chairs, one for the poetic doctor and one for the population, the person passing by, and we invite him to sit, and he engaged a little conversation with the artist about life, how he feels, what he wants to talk about. And after 10 minutes, the artist say, okay, I think I have a poem for you, because he knows a lot of poems. He has this. This is the Albanian version, because we just did it in Tirana for the first time, but we have it in all the languages. And he said, okay, so you are talking about, I don't know, loneliness, or family, or loss, or love. I will send you, okay, a poem from Emily Dickinson, and then he reads the poem for the person chosen for him, and after, he gave it a poetic prescription, so the people go by with the paper and the prescription invented by the artist. And this is a way for people to be touched, to be listened to, not by a social worker, not by a psychiatrist, but by an artist. And this way is to stop the intimidation of cultural center. We know people are a bit intimidated by going into a theater, going into a cultural place, museum. So this is a way to take them by the hand and say, okay, we have this moment, I listen to you, you gave me a piece of your life, a moment, and then you know the theater is for you, and it's a way for them to go without fear. So this is the origin of the project. And obviously the pandemic was a big accelerator because at this moment we needed a link. There is the sociability was avoiding, even forbidden, so the way was to first by phone. People were subscribing online and artists called them in their house on WhatsApp, so in all countries in the world. That's the beginning of having artists from everywhere in the world, Italy first, and then Greece, England, Romania, Africa a lot, even in Taiwan at this moment. And so the artists were calling the person directly at home and having the same moment I described you. After the artists need to have a little story written on WhatsApp groups that we share about what the meeting he just had. So nowadays it's 4 years now that we launched it, and it's more than 300 artists in the world, 27 languages. And just this morning, for the first time in Tirana, with Albanian and Kosovo artists. So I think it's really precious to...
Yeah, and Riccardo, could you pick up and maybe tell me about your first, like, when you first encountered this project, and then what happened when you decided to take it to your theatre, and how audiences have responded to it there?
So we started our relationship with Théâtre de la Ville in a conventional way, sharing two Bob Wilson productions. One of them is still touring, is in this moment in Korea. It's Isabelle Père, Nelly said what she said. But after that, we share with them a vision of a theater. It was still before the pandemic. And I saw for the first time poetic consultation in Paris, in a shopping mall, where at the time Théâtre de la Ville managed one room for shows, because at the time Théâtre was not finished, was still under renovation. And I saw for the first time the actors dressed in white in front of a cosmetic shop, and this is impressing me a lot, impressed us a lot, because there was no theater in the street, but a form of poetry in a public space. There's no trace of theater except for the white vest. So it's the only thing that was similar to a costume, but it was poetry close to the people, and something was telling to the people, so poetry is closest to you than you imagine. And this is impressed me at the time. So when the pandemic came, it was natural for us to join this project, also to keep the work of the actors live. And what surprised me a lot at the time is that so we had poetic consultation with people based in almost every country in Europe, who decided to have so not only Italian residents abroad, but people who decided to have a talk in Italian language. and this was very moving at the time. And after the pandemic, we decided to follow this project also outside. And it became for me very powerful diplomatic mean of spreading culture and mixing culture, mixing languages, mixing artists from different countries and meeting people in different countries. And so this is also became the basis of the shared vision of the theater after the pandemics, because we realized together with Emanuele De Massimo that so theater was not the same, and considering that all remained the same was a mistake. In fact, we had to find new ways to meet people. So I say people, not spectator, because they are not spectator, and the goal is not to make them spectator, is to meet people. So the perfect example is now Teatro della Ville, because they had a beautiful big square in front. They had a beautiful hall to enter the theater. So you go out in the square and you meet people, and this is that's why we followed the project, and the project generated other projects similar to this one. And so in fact, and Miguel is here also for this, in fact generated the idea of making a new production that so is also an heritage of this manner of so mixing different language, different culture, and also different areas of the world. Because one of the main points of what I consultation is that involves also Africa, and is so another way to have a different relationship with Africa, with African culture. And this is, I think, is very important. Poetic consultation are a powerful diplomatic means to meet other people.
Miguel, may I turn the conversation to you now? I was really struck by what we were saying about like this vision for the future, for the post-pandemic future of theatre, for like reworking how you work. And I would like if you could pick up this conversation to talk about both this project and other projects that you have been involved with, like embracing this vision.
Yes, hello, I'm Miguel, and I'm artist director of São Luís Municipal Theatre in Lisbon for a year. So Théâtre de la Ville challenged me to be part on these conversations about the new relations between the theatre, institutional theatre, national theatre, municipal theatre, and the outside, the public space. And we get along very well. I was very delighted to be part in. We share now the co-production of Mr. Wilson Pessoa, since I've been me, Robert Wilson's. And then I'm preparing things to get poetic consultation in Lisbon as well, because we need there in Lisbon, we have a massive tourism industry now. So the centers of the city are very, they lost some of their characteristics, you know. They are tourists come to see other tourists, and tourists come to see other hotels, and you don't get better than this. So I think we have to rehumanize the public squares, the gardens, the places immediately near the theaters, and that's why I joined this conversation. That's why São Luís is very happy to be part of this, and we are forward to have our first poetic consultation. And since Emanuele De Massimo put it, and I agree totally, we are in the new kind of era in leaving the theatre and leaving the public space. You know, we were in this long period of peace after the Cold War. It was, and then now things are changing in lots of ways. Pandemics, the wars going on in various parts of the globe, and anxious that it brings to the individual, this kind of things. And that's a way to rehumanize the speech in the social connections, relationships with each other and with the community, and to make inner closed institutions where people are afraid to go in a more attractive, and to say this is no monument, this is not just a monument, not just heritage, but a house that you are very welcome in, and you outside. I'm not searching outside of the theatre for artistic validation. You know, it's not just artistic validation. It's a mix of social work with artistic validation. I saw it in this way. I don't know if it is a common vision of all the participants, but for instance, poetic consultation is a way to talk with people, like the Romanian director of Sibiu put it very well. There are lots of old people living alone, so poetic consultation is a way of breaking solitude problems, burnout problems, of excess of burnout is another it's another very present thing nowadays because of this isolation in mobile phones and all that. So, and after the pandemics, when you go to theatre, it's not the same as when you used to go to theatre. So I think it's a good excuse to open it. Like Riccardo said, when you get out of Théâtre de la Ville, you continue in the streets in Théâtre de la Ville because you have friends there and there. And I think the real good measure is not artistic, you know, it's not to do the virtuosism thing, but is to be part of that social schemes that are changing now, and to understand them and to rehumanize in this relationship one-to-one, little para-artistical, not totally artistic, para-artistical gestures that can make a difference in each corner, in each, and also the relation with the universities, academic world, hospitals. I mean, the social workers do already this, but they lack artistic point of view. We can have this as an artist, as artistic director, we have this responsibility to be a bit more imaginative and bring a little, another, I don't say pleasure perspective, but a different perspective on the practical things, you know. And some of our neighbors never entered in this theatre is in the center of historical Lisbon. So there are old residents who are not thrown away by the landlords to take it as an hotel. So they never entered. Then they are neighbors. They never entered São Luís because it's you know, charme théâtre of the 19th century, and it's have golden walls and velvet and that, and to break that image of you know, elite thing or eyebrow practice. That's it, I think.
Yes, Julie, do you want to add to this?
Yes, just to precise what you say, I totally agree. I think the word is care, because during the pandemic we all talk about taking care, and we work a lot with doctors, with hospitals in Paris, and I think the ability of artists it's to take care of people a different way than a doctor. It's complementary, obviously. It's the ability to listen and to bring poetry to daily life, to the quotidian of people, to simple life, and to transcribe it in poetry or music or dance. And I think with Doctor, for them, we do a lot of poetic consultation in hospitals, and we keep the white robe. It was a question at the beginning, but Doctor said, no, you are okay to have the white robe. You do the care too another way. I think it's a key for.
Yeah, I think that's I'm glad you mentioned care, because it sounds like from listening to you that is really central to this project. I'm always struck by how in the German-speaking countries they are referring to the theatre as the house, and yet the house can feel quite intimidating to enter for a lot of people who are moving in the community, and this project is a way of bridging that, it's like removing these barriers. Is that something that you also found, Riccardo, when you were like having this project in Italy, like that people were engaging with the theatre in different ways, or you were contacting communities who had thus far maybe not felt comfortable to enter this space?
Yes, in a certain sense. So maybe there is no direct relationship between the different things, because we cannot so often measure the effect of a poetic consultation on the behavior of the person in relation of the theater building. But I think this is not really the point. Is the thing is more general, because it's not exactly the meaning to facilitate someone to enter into the building. This is not the point. Is a part of this thing, but this is not the main part. I think Gael earlier said something important. It is offered. It's something offered. It's something like a gift for someone. This is one point. Is a way to take care of other people. This is another point. And so this is also a matter of responsibility. So after the pandemic, for the artist has to carry on another responsibilities. It's not enough to act, to be or not to be. Although do not finish us with acting, with Shakespeare, with Chekhov, obviously is important, but showing that artists take care of the others as a responsibility can cross different disciplines also, so theater and science, for example. This is very important, because science has become so important after the pandemic. So fake news, strange theories is very difficult. So this is the first level. So showing to the others that theater, that arts, has a new responsibility in front of the people. Then, something different can be born in a certain sense, and maybe also the will to go inside the theater to see a show. But I think we have to start from another point. We do not consider poetic consultation as an investment, as a business for audience development. I think so. For us, it's not like that. It's something like a civil service. At the first, it's something like a civil service. Then it can become a way to start a relationship that take people to become spectators. But it's not the starting point, I think.
Before we move on to talk about like wider topics connected to the theme of public space, it would be we have one of the performers of the poetic consultation in the audience. Would you be able to just provide a little bit of perspective on your experience of performing this, and making those connections with people?
First, I would like to say that as an actor, it's kind of different, because usually you don't really see the audience, and you talked about population and not audience, and this is really the point, meaning that it's a way of showing to population that art is, you were talking about home and house, and this is true, but sometimes art can occur to you without seeking it, and this is a way of developing that sense of it, that art is part of life, and it's not closed in with walls, and it can be, but not also, it's everywhere in life. So it's a way of doing that. The other thing is, as an actor or an actress, when you do that, it's very different because usually you've got the fourth wall, you know, you don't see the audience, there are very multiple people, and here you don't really perform, I would say. You are yourself, with a bit different, but you are yourself, and the point is, I'm going to listen to you and try to discover who you are and what is moving you in your life, and to show you that poetry can be a response of many things in your life, as you said, Riccardo. And this is really the mostly beautiful thing there is. And about outside, inside, for me, things like this, project like that, show that there is no such frontiers in art. There is lots of way of doing that. And I would like to add something about the pandemics, because I remember there was kind of a point at that time, what is useless and what is useful for a society? It was really a question at that time. So eating is useful, art is useless, you know, that kind of stuff. And we saw, because when we did it by phone during the pandemics, at the beginning people were like trying, but after that, because it was for a long time, so there were people like having like a rendezvous. They were telling us it should be, how do you call it, remboursé? Refilled by Social Security, because it's really helping me. And I have my, you know, each Tuesday I'm going to do that. And when it ended, some people were like disappointed, actually, because they couldn't have their appointment. Yeah, so it's also about questioning about what's the use of that, of art in life, because surely we can live without it, but I'm not so sure of that, so that's it.
Actually, that's a really nice jumping off point into talking about some other artists and companies who are using these models. There is a UK company called Slumlow, which is run by a man called Alan Lane. They're based in Leeds. Their actual base is in one of the more deprived area of Leeds, which is a city in the north of England. And during the pandemic, they repurposed their space as a food bank, a food distribution centre for people who didn't have access to enough to eat. But one of the other things that they did is that they were one of the first companies, I think, in the entirety of the UK, and possibly in a time when it was not wholly permitted to do so, but they were making performances in the car park of their space. So they were feeding people, but they were also giving them access to art. And they said that these things are maybe not equally necessary, but they're both like things that people were craving at that time. And I'd like to sort of pick up and talk about that idea of like usefulness of art, of performance, and its relationship to performing in outdoor and public spaces. Miguel, would you like to maybe talk a little on this?
Yes, I will. Getting the point again. In these really strange times that we are living, I'm talking about global perspective, climate change. Now I don't see what happened now in the south of Spain. We're talking about that. The extremism in political views, you know, the polarization, even in countries and cities that didn't have this tradition. Lisbon is one of them. They are very political polarized now, and a way of connecting to the other is always in danger now, because everything can be widespread, you know, get a real wrong focus, to use the word in fashion, focus. And I think these gestures, artistic, social, caring gestures, to bring the theater outside, to show that there are a local community that cares about them and put their problems in perspective, are a new way of participating in a theater audience. You know, that after all these new events of this new century, you cannot just buy your ticket and go inside the theater to see, that artist writing is getting so well now, and this artistic ensemble is, of course, this will go on, but if you want to enlarge this responsibility of being an artist in these days, and you have to do it, because being an artist has to have a social voice, a political point of view, not like mainstream reflection, political point of views. We can get it through these para-artistical little gestures. I mean, when I was in Florence, in Annunziata Square, actors were playing ping pong. This is another like poetic consultation. This is another activity. Professional actors playing ping pong with tables of ping pong and sitting Racine, Ariosto, Corneille, Molière, and doing the Alexandrine verse, you know, with the with the speech. And it was very good for the people who were passing by. They were hearing erudite text, and they were seeing a game. This is the connection between sports and art. For instance, in the middle of Annunziata Place, which is a big square place with lots of monuments in Florence, but Florence has lots of monuments everywhere, and this was great. As another thing, a school of actors, a master giving theater lessons how was it the name of the monument? Sorry, Riccardo.
It was the Chiostro of Santa Maria degli Angeli.
Okay, it was an institute, a religious institute or patrimoine, and people enter and see, oh, this is what it's like a theater class. You know, getting approach, and the theater class promotes togetherness and promotes different ways of vision in the reality. So the anonymous public take part in this class, and for instance, the pupils know that they are being observed, so their response is different. It's these kind of interactions that I need that enrich the perspective of the viewer, of the spectator, of the classic spectator. After 2000, the pandemic, after that, all the wars and the extreme right movements in most of Europe, we have to be we have to have another kind of a relation with this profession of seeing theater, seeing music, seeing dance.
What you say, I think the key is hybridity, because nowadays we have a lot of segmentary thinking, as you say, extremism, and everybody is separated, and art is not science, and science is not in the theater, and we work a lot of hybrid projects, so art and sport, art and health, and the square, the public space, I think it's the place you can do it, because it's already an hybrid place. You have coffee, you have people going by, you have people sitting, staying alone, you have a lot of different movements, and so it's a place you can go both ways with sports and art. So ping pong poetry is a way to do it. We also do it with tennis or with basketball and poetry and theater. And also what you say, taking part. People can just see, they can walk and stop and just look at the thing, or they can participate. This is the other necessity. So we are thinking about new ways of participation of the people. Open dance class, we do it a lot in Paris, and it's a success, incredible success with everybody, children, senior, people just want to move if they can. It's really beautiful to see. If you just open a little possibility, people go. Open mic for poetry or for singing or for telling what you want. Also writing lesson in open class theater. Also kind of shows which made the people participate. It's really important to have this go-between people.
I'm also interested in different models of making work in public spaces and the question of where you choose to place these performances. There's an Irish company that I find is really interesting called Annual Productions, who are making work often in spaces that, like a lot of their traditional theatre products is maybe not going into every day, so they've had productions which are made in like tenement buildings in Dublin, which are due to be demolished, in centres for recovering addicts, and in these spaces, often very much made in consultation with the groups who use those spaces. And like this choice of location, where you place this performance, and the sort of political implications and the social implications of that, I'd be interested to talk about, like what the choice of location in terms of like engaging with the public.
So the first choice is for the squares. The squares. So in Florence, we started to choose the squares that are nearest to the theater, but also because originally the square were the meeting point for people. In the square you have markets, people meet among them, talk, spend time. So this is from time to time this attitude was lost in a certain sense, and also because Florence is a small town. In fact, it's a small town. It's 300,000 inhabitants, but it's very charged with tourism, and especially the city center has changed its face for a tourist offer, but is not a good place for inhabitants. It's very difficult to move through. You have a wall of tourists. The historical part is relatively small in comparison of a relatively small town, and giving a new life to the square, suggesting that there are a meeting point for people through art and through poetry is a good way and a good reason to choose to have a square as a preferred choice, and so we are choosing also historical buildings, as Miguel mentioned. That cloister is relatively unknown, and so like many other places is at a risk to be sold in private hands. So this is another problem, the loss of a part of the patrimoine. The risk is that place become another hotel or something like that. In the city center is no more than 400 meters for the theater. In the historical city center of Florence, this is another problem. So to be present in a place that risks to be sold in private hands, and so the other choice is, for example, for retreat house. We have an historical retreat house that dated probably in the 15th century, and it's still a house for elders. It's not only the oldest, but the greatest elders house in Florence. And so doing poetic consultation there is not only a way to pay a service to the elder that live inside, but also to signalize that two institutions, two famous and old institutions, join the efforts to signalize the importance of arts for the welfare in that case. So Florence is a very delicate city. It's very fragile because the pressure of tourism is, I think, is unbearable and forces us as inhabitants to behave as tourists. And I think is another responsibility for artists is to intervene in this process. Obviously, we cannot stop this process. This is not the goal because it's impossible to stop this process. But maybe we can take our part to suggest that there is a way also to manage this, not to surrender completely to this, because so we cannot stop tourism. This is sure, because probably we had to let so big buses explode, but that is impossible and it's illegal. But in fact, we can give our contribution to manage this process as inhabitants, but as artists, as part of cultural institution. Teatro della Pergola is one of the main cultural institutions in Florence, is one of the oldest probably theater in Europe, probably is the oldest Italian style theater with boxes ever built. So we have also this social responsibility, and the social responsibility do not end at the door of the theater, but especially is outside, and it's not theater in the street, but it's so a way to place art in the center of debate.
I'd like to pick up something that you said there about like how this form of art in public space, it doesn't just change your relationship with the artist and the connection with the audience and the artist, it also can recontextualize your relationship with the space, with the public space. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that, about how these projects can change people's perceptions of the spaces in which they live, or the spaces in which these projects are taking place.
First, I think the way is how we inhabit a city, and we know with climate change is also how we inhabit Earth. It's a bit, global, but it starts on local scale, and we actually have a development of the project with the nature in the city. Where is the nature? Do we have trees? It's obviously when you have trees and a park and green grass and a river or a lake, it's really a peaceful place, and people naturally go there because they can have calm and less noises. So the other point is cars, obviously. The public space is also a matter of mobility. So here in Paris we have the theater is in front of a big square, but also nearby the Seine, so the big river. And this is the development of the project is about nature in the city. Can we plant trees when we inhabit a square? Can we just put some benches for people? How we can have less cars, so it's calmer place for children to run through, for elderly people to walk. It's a simple thing, but it starts there. And the movement of the water, it's important. It's nourishing the city. And the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, obviously she has really a point in transforming deeply the city. So with the question of car and bike and people in the street, but also with this, she has a project for the Seine. And I think it's important that artists can imagine ways to connect nature and the city, nature and people through art. We have also artistic performance, visual art. You can have a design on the street, on the trees, how you poeticize the city, the streets, and the nature.
Yes, I think it's important the image that the artistic community give to the neighborhood, to the city, and to the country. Even in Portugal is a small country, and things get spread real fast. So if something successful in Lisbon happens, then Portugal copy, and then this is nice. But my problem in particular in Lisbon is the same with Florence. Not so much because Florence is Florence, but it's overcrowded with tourism, and it's a point where you get hotels to go to other parts of the country. And I think Lisbon has some good things to offer, and people have hospitality, and how can that translate in an artistical catalyzer that people can see this, and for instance, neighbors see, we be part of a community. In our community there's this big theater, São Luís, which offers, like Riccardo said, offers something to us, and get life more easy to us, and get life more acceptable for us. And that's, I think, the main contribution in this project, to be really part. We can, of course, we are going to I'm programming good shows. I try to see it all around the world, just to take to Lisbon, and national shows and local shows. But how can we do something for the real neighborhood, not just what's artistic value that happens inside the theater? Can we do something for this crisis, all forever crisis moments that we have, like, you know, the intellectuals now have lost some of their power in media. They're not inviting writers to analyze political happenings, or in Portugal at least they are not so visible and loud as they used to be. So can we restart again by little gestures on the public space, making para-artistical, I'm repeating myself, but this is really important. So the people, and even tourists, immigration communities, we have a lot of immigration in Lisbon from countries of Hindustan, Bangladesh, India, and they are a really separate part, and they don't take part in cinema and theater, and this is a way of getting things more light, more open. Yeah, you can see it, we can talk about your problems. We have the same problems in India as in Portugal. Death, love, and madness, for instance. You can speak whatever you want. This is an artist, an actor who is trained in hearing, and who is trained in communicating with you. So you are artists, trust in us. We are a community living and working inside the theater, but sometimes in summer, in gardens, in squares, we go out and we are here to talk with you, and you are part of this. This, I think, can change really the perspective. I'm not so worried about theater will have their artistic continuation, validation, all that, but we want to do a little bit more. Can we go out of the theater? It's just that question. Can we go out? And we'll see how.
We've been talking a lot about projects which are about small gestures, about intimacy, about one-on-one connections being made. I'm interested in the political and social potential of something larger scale, in engaging with public space, engaging with people in the community on a bigger scale. I wonder if there are projects that you can maybe speak to, or maybe just like can envisage like the power of such projects to engage with people en masse in this way.
Yes, actually, as Riccardo said, poetic consultation is the beginning of a bigger process. And now we are creating a network of squares in the world, and also in Africa, because artists in the public space is the key in Africa, because there are no real cultural structure. And the idea is to invent all the scale. And we, in the square of Place du Châtelet, in the center of Paris, we are every weekend processing different scale, building scene outside. So it's a logistical question, issues of light. Is it night? Is it in the daylight? Heat or rain? But it's like a festival. But it's how you process the question to have some big show. Actually, we have Ofe Schechter, is one of the greatest choreographer actually, doing his shows in front of 500 persons in the square, free, obviously, and we have the big scenic stage with all the technical capacities. But it's the main, I think, issue is how you get the authorization for stopping the car. Because obviously when you do big scale you have to stop the car, but actually here you have great public spaces with square really large, so it's more easy, and no cars. But in Paris, it's really difficult. You have cars everywhere. But actually, we are thinking about that scale, and even open class dance with 400 people doing dance, big ball, concert. Obviously, music is essential too. So I think it's not the limit of scale, and it's important to have big project too, and the crowd. How a crowd can be an artistic crowd.
And Riccardo, can you maybe pick up on that as well and talk about like the potential for the potential for the crowd, the potential for large-scale work, and how it can impact on society?
But I think that the potential is there is big potential because we start from intimacy. There were reasons to start from intimacy. Reasons were based above all on the pandemics, but not only. And this, I think, is very important to keep this intimacy relationship. But I think that aiming for big numbers is not a kind of corruption of this project, but is a wisely way to enlarge it. And so I had beautiful experience in Paris, seeing of Qendra doing classes. That is different from a show, but doing classes for 200, 300 people. Classes, not a show. And so I think aiming for big numbers is a way to create a big community. Big community is not a way to, so it's not considering under the number of tickets. Yes, it's this, big communities, because we need community. It's the other side of the pandemics. Starting from intimacy, because intimacy was a need at the time. But we do not forget that it was forbidden to meet each other. So make a big community was under penalty at the time. So recreating this sense is not a danger, because sometimes theater hates big numbers. So when it's a big number, so it's a suspect, it's commercial, it's mainstream, it's risky. And so recreating this sense of a big community, also so in all fashion Greek style, so the ancient tragic theater or comedy theater, so having a big community in a theater, and so the theater belongs to the community. This is means also the political side, the administration side, because so in Italy often the theater, also the public theater, the theater funded by public money is a sort of a problem for the administrators, because so they had to manage and on the other side, public theater is a sort of a powerful gun in the hand of the administrator. I see this in Paris. I see this in Paris because the measure of Paris, for the measure of Paris, Théâtre de la Ville is very important in air action. And during the Olympics, for example, the cultural role of Théâtre de la Ville has enlightened it so much. And so, seeing this from the Italian perspective, we have to regain this role for the public theater, means theater public funded. And I think aiming to big communities is a good goal, because is a way to spread theater poetry among the population.
I I completely agree. I think that's, I've seen that in action in a number of cities and a number of projects, and it can have an incredible sort of feeling of this congregational quality of theatre. There's in Sheffield, another city in the north of England, they have a big open public space in front of the theatre, and they have a company called Sheffield People's Theatre, which is community-based, and they are sometimes staging big, large-scale productions in this square with choirs and other community groups, and the atmosphere in those spaces, it really does feel like the theatre is open for everyone, and they're incredibly dynamic and entertaining, but also very accessible at the same time. And I think that like theatre's really like building on the potential of the public spaces to engage with all the different groups in the community and to unify them. I think there's a really potential for unification there, and maybe that's something we can pick up a little and talk about, is like what the community means in terms of the theatre, and like this potential for unifying different groups.
Yes, I can talk a little in sequence of what Riccardo said of the big scale projects and linking with that. In a particular experience we had now in bringing São Luís outside, which is called Jazz Picadeiro, which we pick some avant-garde little groups that doesn't have the attractive appeal to get a single venue inside the theatre, because they are starting, they are very experimental, and we put it in Picadeiro, which is a stone road. Nothing happens much there, but it has trees, it has shadows during the sun in heat, because Lisbon is very hot there. And we invite 2 bars to be there to serve people lemonades and beers and all. And we managed to build a new point of interest in Lisbon during the summer, which was a festival of avant-garde, cutting-edge, experimental jazz, free jazz derivations, which was not easy to be attractive, because São Luís is a theatre that follows a little Teatro da Ville. It presents new circus, dance, music. It's not just theatre-oriented. So, and we created an habitat there that was nothing going on there. So this is and we have 500 people every day, tourists that come and be part of something happen local, endemic, not just passing by, not just transition. An endemic space of people getting along, conversation, having a drink, and being part of artistic happening. So this was really nice. And for instance, putting press on the political decisions, just by these kind of things go along, poetic consultation, little interference in the order of things, everyday life in cities. So the guys who execute the politics see, oh, this is working, people are happy to do it, this gives some quality of life. This part of the city was stopped, now is in movement. So we can see, so if you see this, why don't you cut that road during Sundays, during weekends? Why don't we make this a point of meeting with other people? So this for me is a big scale proposal, because we have the power to rethinking the urbanism of the city as well. And if you can change squares and put more trees, getting more green, places where, like the sophists on the ancient Greek, can not in their. This example is not the good one, but where we can pass something to them, artistical, vivencial, existential, not only artistical, but we can be in contact with what the community needs, with what the tourists want besides stones and heritage, and what the immigrants can talk with us, because we don't know them. There's a lot of ghetto immigrants there in Lisbon. Others because of the language or the cultural way of living a town. So I think we can hear, it's not El Dorado, multiculturalism thing. I'm not talking about that. We know the problems and the enterprises. This is a political job to do. But there are some, I see it in a minor, soft way of doing. I believe in soft power. That's it.
It feels to me that in the UK, and I suspect in most of Western Europe, we've seen a real erosion of spaces where you can enter without some form of financial transaction having to happen, whether you are buying a drink or something to eat or buying your entry. I'm interested in how this feeds into the discussion of what we're talking about, of like the spaces which are accessible from that perspective, and also for the economic reality of as a theatre sort of making work in these spaces.
Yes, actually, as Gael said, and it was really a good point, it's not free action, it's something you offer, and poetry has this talent of being a gift that when you give a poem to somebody, you don't lose it. It's not like a jacket. I give you my jacket, I don't have it anymore, but if I give you a poem or a dance or a song, I still have it, and you can go with it. But obviously, the financial matters of it, it's a matter of choice. Because the fundings of the theatre, and Théâtre de la Ville is a municipal theatre, so it's with public fundings of the city, not of the state. It's a choice of where you put the money, because actually you don't have the funding of the tickets. And it's also, I think, the goal of having new ways of private fundings, but in the public spaces. And I think they are interesting. Big enterprises or philanthropist enterprises can be involved in this. And actually maybe more than in the production in the venue, because they want to take part, and it's really concrete, and it's for population, so it's for everybody, not only the aficionados of theatre, and the other way is to try to produce maybe at less cost, so very simple proposal, going back to simple things. Actually, poetic consultation is just artist and chair, so it's light. But when we do bigger scale, as with and it's important, it's how you can do. We know the origins of theater and dance and music. It's outside and with nothing more than the artist. So going outside with sometimes no microphone, but it's okay. And artists should have the courage to do it and to renew it. And for sustainability too, it's important to do more with less. So I think it's a good challenge, but it's not easy.
In a second, I'm going to open this up for questions from the audience. But first, Riccardo, maybe you could talk to this point of the economic question of making this kind of work.
So I think that Julie has explained well the point is a matter of choice, where you decide to invest money. For us, it's very important to put money in this process, because so we think that this process is a way to gain a future for the theatre, and is a sort of investment. And obviously, it's only a responsibility for a public institution in front of the society. But so obviously there is a limit on it. There's a limit of using funding for every purpose of your institution. And but I think that raising private fundings, especially from cultural foundations, cultural private foundations, in terms of sharing this sense of responsibility is very important. And so I think that there is another non-direct way to let the money take part in this point, because I was thinking about it during this debate, but speaking of large-scale project, we are all sharing this Bob Wilson production of Pessoa, and we co-commissioned with Teatro della Ville. We involved Miguel as a co-producer, and so one can think so another world with a show. But Pessoa cannot exist without this kind of work, because so we share the idea, knowing Miguel, because this year is the 15th anniversary of Carnation Revolution. We gave democracy to Portugal in 1974, and this way of thinking of the action of performance, mixing languages, for example. So Pessoa has 4 different languages, 7 different performers who came from 7 different nations, and so sharing a vision is also knowing new people. So we have a performer that comes from one of Yeton's show, Anke's project, and so it's a sort of a circle. And obviously, Pessoa is a matter of selling tickets, because it's not a big budget show, it's a medium budget show, but it's for us as Teatro della Pergola is a big effort, but it's a result of a work. It do not exist without this work, and also without investing in so this theater in public spaces, because it's a part of a vision, and sharing a vision also produce different big scale projects. Some of them also selling tickets, and so this is a wheel that is turning.
Thank you. I can see we have a number of festival programmers and producers and assorted critics and writers in the audience. So if anyone has a question that they, there are several questions. Okay, do we have microphone? Okay.
We share a microphone.
We share the microphone.
We share everything.
Thank you. I'm Loureiro from Sweden, and thank you for this really inspiring conversation that you shared your reflections. I have a very down-to-earth question. I'd like to find a way. I would really like to find a way to introduce this to Sweden, to Swedish theater. So my concern is how do you present this for the actors? Like how do you get the actors involved, prepared to do this, and how did you find all the poems?
Okay, concrete question, but really important. First of all, it begins with a partnership with a structure, a place, or it can be an association, or a cultural place. And we ask for them, okay, do you know a group of actors that we can train? We start with 5 or 6 actors, local actors, and we insist on the sensibility, the ability to listen, as I said, and it's important that the artist wants to take part. He wants to go to public spaces. He's okay to meet people and to have this moment, because it's not all artists. It's okay. Some just want to perform. They don't have this need, but some of them have. So it's a trust with the partnership, because they know the artist local, we don't. And we say, okay, start to select 5 or 6. It can be actors, but also dancer or musician, if you prefer. And after the 5 are selected, we have a training process with French actors from the troupe, but they spoke English, or we have a lot of languages spoken, so we find a way to communicate. And it's two moments, by phone or visio, or if there is the funding, we go in the place. It's the best way, but it's not always possible to travel. And the first time the artists do the poetic consultation by phone with the other artists, the trained artist, and they have a debrief. The French artists say, okay, now you choose your own poems in your language, Swedish poetry, classical, contemporary, and the next time we talk, you have 12 or 15 poems you like, about different themes, love, loneliness, travel, okay. And on the second moment, it's the artist calling, the new one, and he do the poetic consultation for the French artist, and they debrief. And after it, it's okay to go and to do your first poetic consultation. And this is created with all the gathering. If 5 artists choose 10 poems, you collect them and you have 50 poems in Swedish, for example, and a poem they like. It's important to have the desire to share it, and they just share this, and then, like this morning in Tirana, we choose a place that you think is good, public spaces or inside, but public with passers-by, and we try. And obviously now it's in 18 countries, so because I think it's a universal need, so I'm sure it will work in Sweden. But so that's the way we do it.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. I wanted just to say that the poems we share with all those countries for actors is very important, because we discover authors that we didn't know, and we can share them to French people everywhere, you know. Well, I'm French, so I do it in French, but in any country you can make other people share the discovering of authors from foreign countries, and this is very important, I think.
Yeah, that's a good spin-off for the project. Yeah.
There was a second question, I think, further back. Oh, fantastic. Thank you. I'm Oana Cristea Grigorescu from Romania, and I'm a theatre critic, and it's more a comment than a question, because I benefit for this poetical consultation during the pandemics, because I wrote about the project in a Romanian magazine, and it was very healing event for me, for the moment of anxiety and isolation, to hear the voice of an actor. It is true, I am not an innocent audience, because I knew the actress, but it was something original and also very fitted to the intimacy of reading poems, because it's something one-to-one. I think receiving poems, it is something very intimacy and personal. I doubt that we can hear in big audience poems. You need to have a fantastic actor for this. So it is fitted to the character of the poems. On the other hand, this artistic intervention in public spaces is something which is spreaded these last years, also in Romania. We have a project called, in Bucharest, called Open Streets. Each weekend during the summer, the principal boulevard of Bucharest, Calea Victoriei, is a peatonal space, but the reverse is that it was more pubs and street deliveries which invaded the space, and I feel the lack of the presence of some real artists, not amateur and something low quality. And maybe it is something to think about, the reverse of this opening spaces without the content of... And the other hand, the good example is a theater from a working class quartier district, where we have a theater called Masca, the Mask, and they have a courtyard where during the summer, last 1 year and a half, they imagine some programs for the audience, for the people from the district. And they try to attract the young audience, young people, to assist to film projection, discussion about society and about their problems. So maybe these are ways to spread and to develop this idea of reinforcing the presence of the artist in the society, which is something we need. Thank you. Thank you. We're about to run out of time. Do we have one last question before? Oh, yes.
Yes, shortly. We are creating video theater projects because working in theaters and black box in my country is not available because of the clans who are working in our domestic theaters, mostly national. So when I try to apply on theater festivals, usually they are rejected because they want live performing. From the other hand, we start making experiments and apply those projects in the independent film festivals around the world, and with sections experimental film and art house film, and they are selected. So my question is, what are the chances festivals in Europe and in the world to become more open and more tolerant for video theater projects, who's supposed to be screened like films are screened, because of the circumstances they're made by? Thank you.
Thank you. I really don't know the answer to that, and I feel anguish as well. But look, we in São Luís we are part of another réseau, net, which is called Prospero, and there during the pandemic and still now, this is important, still now, we decide a show that can be filmed in the theater during a live performance, preferably on rehearsal, and then we share it. But it's a kind of private club. I think the organizers, you know, it's one theater from France, one theater from, it's like 10 theaters. It's called Prospero, and it has a duration of 2 years. But in 2 years, we can put a Portuguese perspective. We had this experience, but it's shared in a wide net working thing, and this can be cautionated, scheduled to be. It's a bureaucratic thing. It's not. You have a project, and we pass it in our channel, in sites, and whatever. The real answer to that, in the way that you put it, I don't know. I think it would be great to share the companies, the creators that are apart from the mainstream, because there are theater mafia, sorry about the term, that doesn't allow us, the new emergent to enter, or the old ones, I don't know. This is the same in Lisbon. There are these problems as well, a kind of caste that dominates public and independent theater. So I'm glad to know that we are not alone.
I think we have, I know there was, I think we've reached the end of our time now, so I want to thank all my panelists for